As we discussed last week, stress happens to be the number one mental health issue in our nations at this time. And there are a lot of reasons for that, aside from individuals who've had stress their whole life. Many individuals are concerned about their jobs, they're concerned about their families, and of course, finances is weighing very heavily at this time for many people as we've had quite a number of layoffs. In addition, we are still, we still have the virus, COVID running around, we have the flu, we have other physical illnesses for which we know that physical illness can affect people's mental state. And being stressed out, especially going into maybe a procedure, if you're anticipating certain outcomes for any treatment that you may have, like chemo, those are the things that can cause stress. But today, I want to focus on some of the things that affect our younger generation. And I'm proud to introduce to you my youngest son, Akil Cole. And he's here today to speak on certain things related to the younger generation and the things that are concerning to them. And I've asked him to share. And I really appreciate you coming, Akil, because sometimes we think mental health and mental health concerns are secrets, and for a lot of us, we're not getting care because we don't want people to think you're crazy. And crazy, I really want to demystify that somehow if you feel stressed, anxious, depressed, that you're crazy and losing your mind. That is so not true. And if you're out there listening or you know someone who you can tell that things are weighing on them, maybe they're sleeping a lot, they're overeating, not eating, have decided not to go out, spending lots of time alone and isolated, those are red flags that they may be suffering from anxiety, depression, or may have had an injury, a car accident, an attack, whether a robbery or some form of sexual attack, that now is affecting them days and months and maybe years afterwards. So please, no one is crazy because they have stress, depression, or mental illness. What we are is in need of help, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the things that can be done. But back to our guest, Akil Cole. Can you tell me a little bit about what impacts you as far as stress when you hear that word?
For sure. I mean, right now I'm 23 and I graduated from university last fall. And one of the things that's kind of squarely on my mind right now is just finding a full-time job so that I can be less dependent on you and the rest of the family and being able to stand on my own, but also step into a provider role um, at this stage in my life. I've been very privileged to be able to be supported as I have been, but finding enough resources to be able to step into that role is kind of stressful because there are opportunities for sure, but to be able to afford housing, to afford eating, to afford a good quality of life without a second, third, or fourth income in this economy is very stressful. So that's something that's been kind of squarely on my mind for the past year and some change since my senior year.
Do you think that other graduates are having these types of stressful thoughts and that could lead, of course, to anxiety? Have you, in communicating with your other peers who have graduated or when they had just recently, did they go through similar anxieties and concerns?
Without a doubt, for sure. Especially because I went to school in Washington, D.C., and a lot of people went to school there so that they could work in the federal government or work abroad. And a lot of those roles, those internships, those full time employment opportunities are just gone. And they built up their entire careers, their entire, you know, trajectories to fill these opportunities. And some of them actually got offers, and those were eliminated. And
Oh,
so a lot of them aren't able to step into the provider role that, and unlike me, like they need to fulfill at even a much younger age. And so a lot of my peers are really stressed out because they have to pivot, and pivot in ways that frankly no other generation really has had to.
wow. That's an interesting word you use, pivot. Um, Describe when you say the word pivot, what that means, because I think our audience really needs to understand that so we can understand where our young people are right now in their lives and their consciousness.
Yeah, when I say pivot, I mean you're going one way, or at the very least, you think you're going one way, and by choice or by circumstance, you have to change directions.
Yes.
You know, one example is you're interning at the State Department because that's what you wanted to do. You're like a government head. Like me in high school, I was like, government, law, politics, that's what I want to do. And then you get hit with an executive order that says the program that you were interning for or your job is gone. So now you have to pivot. Now you have to do something else with your time and find another way to meet your financial, emotional, and physical needs. So you're looking in other places, maybe the nonprofit sector, maybe the corporate sector, maybe you turn to self-employment, but it's the change of trajectory, and that's stressful because some people don't. In fact, I would say most people don't like change,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's a necessary part of everyone's lives. But it's also extremely stressful to have very dramatic change all
Yes.
at once on many different fronts, be it healthcare, education, all these different things are happening all at once, and so not everyone has the resources to make that kind of dramatic pivot.
And that's a good point that you bring up. So many changes at one time can be very stressful. Actually, it is stressful. Let's not mince words with it. When I started medical school, at the first week, we had a course, and in that course, every person in my class was given an exam, a test, and the test was to assess exactly how much stress each of us individually had, because through experience, the school had knew that depending on the amount of stress the students had would determine their success in completing the medical program. So they gave us this battery of tests. And some of the questions I will always remember: have you changed your location recently? Have you moved? Have you moved to a new house? Have you moved to a new environment? Have you moved to a different state? Have you recently gotten married? And sometimes people think, oh, if it's something good, it's not stressful. And actually, it can be stressful. They counted getting married, starting a new relationship, having a child as being um, very high on the stress level. Some people have children and they wonder why we now have a thing called postpartum depression, where, yeah, it's a bouncing, beautiful baby and you wanted the baby, but many and some women do go into a state of depression because of the stress. Now you're caring for another life. That life is demanding of your time, your energy, your body if you're breastfeeding, and your entire body has changed. Other stressful circumstances on the exam was relationships. Did you break a relationship? Have you recently been divorced? Have you recently had a death in your home? Has a partner that you've been with, and one of my patients was married 50 years and her husband just recently passed. And now she's faced with trying to pay for their housing with one income when there were two incomes, not to mention the partnership of no longer having someone who's been with you for 50 years. So, for those of you who are out there, if you don't have not yet recognized, am I stressed? Think about your changes and the adjustments you've had to pivot from. And we're going to go into talking about what we can do when we're experiencing stress. So I'd like you to take me back to high school and your college and the kind of things that impacted you and maybe your peers that you would say was stressful.
Yeah. Well, the thing that came to mind for me was high school. High school maybe in some ways was more stressful for me than college, and especially because my third year as a junior, that was the year that most colleges were looking at their applicants and their students to say, is this person fit for my university? And
Right.
so I was taking as many advanced placement classes as I could, dual enrollment in a bunch of different clubs. I was traveling all over the place. And I remember there was a point in my junior year of high school where I reflected on the previous, 8, 9 months, and I had gotten sick 6 different times with strep throat, with a flu, with just 6 different things. And each time it was like before big conferences,
Mm.
before, I had a big test or, some event. And so it was around that time that I decided, I was like, okay, this isn't like my life isn't really going to change. I'm going to have my academic and extracurricular demands, but I need to be able to manage these things differently. And
Yes.
so I was like, I want to make a habit of some sort of grounding practice, and that was around the time when I made like meditation a very regular part of my
Wow.
day to day.
Did you hear that? Adopting a grounding practice. So we're going to put that as one of the things we can do for stress and for young people. Here you are in high school, you're doing so much, you're at that point in time like all high school students. Even now, we're in April. Many students in high school now are about to graduate next month, and they're looking at applicants, they're waiting for people to say yes or no. And you found a grounding tool called meditation. Describe that. How does that ground you?
Well, for me, meditation is in the very traditional sense of trying to find a quiet moment and a quiet, non busy space, and then sitting down, closing my eyes, and just focusing on my breath. And if it's not my breath that I'm focusing on for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then it's focusing on a single word and trying to repeat it to myself. And no, there's a certain thing that I focus on. So meditation is about being still and finding a single thing to focus on. Because every other part of my life, every part of my day, there's always more than one thing to focus on. But that dedicated moment of, okay, I'm gonna breathe.
Did it help?
It did. It did, especially if I'm consistent. It's not like it's magic. It's not like, oh wow, I meditated for 5 minutes. I'm just floating. That's not gonna happen. But like if it's consistent, I'm definitely a lot more regulated and less irritable, and stressed out if I'm meditating on a regular basis.
Nice. And so I'd like, if you've ever tried meditation, give it a try as one of the things to help you de stress. And you know you're stressed out. Some symptoms are you may feel palpitations, your heart might be starting to race, you might start getting sweaty palms in your hands, start sweating under your arm, your mouth may get dry. If you're speaking, you might start. I've seen people start racing in their speech, talking really really fast, and then all of a sudden it's like everything's coming all at once because they're revving up anxiety, and that deep breathing, getting away from whatever event is happening, and as you said, focusing on that one thing. And for individuals who are not doing meditation, prayer often can be that thing that assists you in calming yourself and just focusing in a prayer for 5 minutes. Were there anything else during high school that you would say helped with the stress that you started and maybe you're still doing now?
Yeah, I mean prayer. You know, I grew up in a praying household, and like making sure to like make a space within myself first to be calm and then turning to God. That has always been something that was important to me. And even when I have a meal, I always take the time to just be like, thank you, God, for this meal. Thank you to the farmers that cultivated the food that is on my plate. Thank you to the people that, prepared this. If I went to Chipotle, thank you to the workers. So just taking that moment has always been important to me because there's a tendency, I think, in our culture to move so quickly from thing to thing to eat just for the sake of fuel.
Right.
And that moment of gratitude, not just to a higher power, but also to all the processes, allows me to be like, I'm not alone.
Yes.
Like, just that recognition that I'm not alone is important. And it's a practice that I've kept my whole life.
Nice. So if you didn't hear it, gratitude, believe it or not, is one way to help with stress. Because if you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my bills? I'm late for work, or I don't know what's going to happen with my relationship. Stopping for a moment and just going into gratitude. I'm going to be late. Thank you for this job that I'm going to. I have these bills for my house. Thank you that I still have my house. And thank you for this body that's still moving. And calming yourself and going through that thank you and that gratitude will sometimes help just to bring a little peace into the racing space that you may be in because of stress. Any other final things, points that you can help a young person who's maybe feeling stressed, or for family members that see a young person in a stressful situation?
Yeah. I'll say it's going to sound mad cliche, but turning to other people. I spent a lot of like my high school life, even college life and post college life, forgetting that I have a village around me, and that is a privilege. Not everyone has a whole village around them of people that will be as supportive as they've been of me, but everyone has someone, even if the one person you have is yourself. But most people have more than just themselves. And it's really important to try to find a way to open up, even if it's in small ways, because no person is an island. My grandma was telling me that last night. No person is an island. So turning to other people and allowing other people to share the weight of life,
Yes.
that's really important.
Thank you for that. I want to give a couple tips for individuals who are coping with stress right now. Finances is important, and yes, it can impact you when you're lacking in finances. Of course, a physical illness definitely, like cancer, um, can definitely affect you, and as well as the loss of a partner. And there's so many other things that can lead to stress and anxiety. But I do want to really emphasize, if you're in a place where every day you're anxious and nervous and worried and you can't concentrate, you cannot focus, please seek help. Please seek help. Talk to a mental health specialist. Speak to maybe a minister at your church or someone who is experienced in mental health, that they can guide you in the right direction. Many people are embarrassed about seeking health professionals for mind wellness, and that's what I like to call it, mind wellness. If you take your car, who's less than you are, for its tune up, you are so much more important. If your mind is so stressed out that you're unable to function as a parent, do your job at work, or even start planning for your future, seek out a health mental specialist. Other things to incorporate: watch the foods you eat. Caffeines, sugars help to aggravate and worsen anxiety. Exercise. Make sure you're getting out and breathing the air, walking, deep breathing. Those are things that help. And the one thing that I will leave you with: if it is not yours, give it back. We often stress out on other people's issues. And if it is yours, remember it is yours. Sit and work out a plan, and it doesn't have to be solved today. And I think that's what we have to realize. Rome was not built in a day, so it's okay to take time to work out the issues that you have, and with a health professional. So, Kil, any last words?
Um, no, you got it. Yeah.
Thank you for coming. I so appreciate you. This is my baby, and I love him to death. And I'm grateful for the words, and I hope someone or something resonated with you. Please join me on the fourth Wednesday at 1 o'clock, where we will continue the conversation, and we'll have two health professionals who will be here to give some recommendations for you. And don't forget, we will have the Mind Wellness Seminar on May 10th. Join me, and I look forward to speaking with you again. I'm Dr. Michelle Powell, your Councilwoman for Residency 3. Have a fabulous day, and breathe.
Peace.